Welcome to Beginning Knitting Lesson 1. If you have access to this video, then you are in a class with me right now. It's important for you to master these techniques before your next lesson, and hopefully this video helps. The first thing we're going to learn is a slip knot. It is how you should start all of your projects and also how you should start casting on. It is a simple knot, but it needs to be done correctly. You wrap the yarn around your finger, doing a crisscross motion. The yarn that's on top, the strand that is on top of the other yarn, gets pulled through the loop around your finger, and then you pull both strands down. Then it makes a loop that can be tightened around the needle. So again, you wrap the yarn around your finger. The yarn that is on top gets pulled underneath the yarn on bottom. Pull that up, and that gives you a knot that can be tightened. A knitted cast on is the perfect cast on to do within a project if you have to cast on extra stitches. It's a beginner cast on as well. However, it is not my preferred cast on to teach my beginners. So this may be the cast on that we went with depending on your level. So feel free to use this. Otherwise, there is an additional cast on method in this video, the Longtail Cast On. So for right now, I'm going to review this method, but if this is not the method we went with, you can skip over this. Place the slip stitch onto your left hand needle and tighten it. Then you're going to take your right hand needle, which is your working needle. You're going to insert it on the bottom of the stitch from left to right and front to back. You will then take your working yarn and wrap it around the back, counterclockwise around your right hand needle, slip that loop through to the front, separate your needles, and take your left hand needle and go underneath that stitch, slipping it then off the right hand needle and onto your left hand needle. That is a stitch that you have created. You have now 2 stitches on your left hand needle, so you have now casted on 1 stitch. You're going to repeat that process until you have the number of stitches that you require to start your project. The Longtail Cast On is going to be a universal cast on that you can use for almost all of your projects. However, it is something that you only use in the beginning of most projects, so it will be helpful to have this little reminder video. For this cast on, you are going to start with a slip knot. However, you are going to give yourself a long tail, hence the name. The length of the tail is going to be dependent on the type of yarn you're using, the type of needle you're using, and the number of stitches you are casting on. We will review this in your lesson, and you should take notes. Once you have your slip knot on the needle, you are going to take the strand that is not attached to the ball of yarn, and that's going to be the thumb side yarn. You're going to take your index finger and your thumb together and put them through the center of both yarns. Then take your other 3 fingers and grab both strands of yarn below and spread your index finger and your thumb apart. You'll take your needle and bring it down between those fingers to make a triangle in the center of your hand. You're then going to take the needle in your right hand and bring that up underneath the strand of yarn on your thumb. and then across and around that strand on your index finger. And then we're going to bring that needle down between the two strands of yarn on your thumb. You'll then drop the yarn off of your thumb, and then as you start pulling, grab that strand with your thumb and open it up. You're going to then be back at your beginning pose, making that triangle in the palm of your hand again. And under the thumb, grab that yarn from your finger, and then down between the two strands on your thumb, drop the yarn from your thumb, and then grab that strand from underneath, and let's stretch that out. And we're creating stitches. We don't want them to be crazy tight on our needle. We don't want them to be crazy loose. What we want is consistency. So we want every stitch to be the same size on our needle. So you're going to carry on doing this motion until you have the number of stitches that you require on your needle. The slip stitch does count as your first stitch. So when you cast on for the first time, that's going to be stitch number 2 because your slip stitch is your first stitch. All right, now we're getting into the meat, the knit stitch. After we have cast on, we are going to start our first row, and that is going to be with the knit stitch. For knitting, there are 2 main stitches, the knit and the purl stitch. In lesson 1, we are going to learn the knit stitch, and that is the stitch we are going to practice, and we are going to master that before our second lesson. Yes, we are. It is important that you are holding your needles correctly. The needle in your left hand is going to have your stitches on the needle, and the needle in your right hand is going to be your working needle. Now you want that ridge line from the bottom of the cast on to be facing downwards or towards your body when you start knitting. That is important, and you're going to want to continue that as you're developing your fabric. You're going to take your needle, your working needle, insert it into the first stitch from left to right, front to back. You're then going to hold onto your yarn in your right hand and wrap that yarn counterclockwise around the right hand needle. Keep a hold of the yarn with tension as you pull that right hand needle through to the front, keeping that yarn on and pulling a loop through to the front. You're then going to slip the stitch off of the left hand needle and transfer it onto the right hand needle. You've then moved 1 stitch from the left hand needle onto the right hand needle, and that is knitting. You are moving your stitches from the left hand needle onto the right hand needle. So you're inserting your needle, you are wrapping around the right hand needle counterclockwise, pull that loop through to the front, and then slip that stitch off of the left hand needle. There are 4 steps. Insert your needle into the stitch, wrap your yarn around counterclockwise, pull that loop through to the front, and pull that stitch off of your left hand needle. Once you have completed your first row or any row, what you want to do is switch hands. So now your left hand needle has your stitches on it again, and your right hand needle is empty and becomes your working needle again. In preparation for your next class, you need to pick up your knitting at least 10 minutes a day and practice knitting the knit stitch for at least 10 minutes. What it's going to do is it's going to create muscle memory in your hands so that when we cover the next steps, which is going to be purling, we're going to be covering knitting and purling in the same row, lots of fun stuff. And in order to do that, I need you to have this knit stitch down, okay? So have fun, happy knitting, and I will see you in your next lesson.
She didn't love you